Hi guys, Carl here from Self-Sufficient Hub. Today we're going to be looking at 5 wild edibles for midsummer that are great for complete beginners. So we're going to start right here, and this is one that I've been meaning to collect for a couple of weeks now, and it's Meadowsweet. It's a glorious plant. Now, for those of you who don't follow my channel, in September I'm doing a complete self-sufficiency challenge, and I'm only eating things that I can grow, forage, make myself, and that includes even things like salt and pepper. I will be consuming absolutely nothing that was bought in a shop. So if you're interested in following that, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. But one of the reasons I mention that is because one area in which my diet was going to be lacking, and I was really desperate to find some kind of solution, was custard to have with my rhubarb and apple crumbles and things like that. Well, Meadowsweet is going to serve the purpose of filling that gap of vanilla as a flavouring. Let's just talk about the identification features of the plant first of all. The first thing to say is it does like quite damp feet, so the environment it's growing in is going to be one of the first clues. So it quite often grows in roadsides, in lower lying ground. You see we're at the bottom of a hill here, and there's a drainage ditch just the other side of this bank. That's one of the perfect environments that you're going to find it in. It grows absolutely everywhere that you've got the right conditions. The next thing, it's really one of the key identifiers for this plant, and it means that you can identify it even when it's not in flower. When it's in flower, it's super easy to identify. So we'll start there. When it's in flower, you've got these amazing fluffy sprays of off-white flowers, and there's nothing I've come across that looks quite like it. Couple that with the smell, which is just amazingly, deliciously summery. You know, a little bit like, not the same smell, but the same kind of smell as you might get from elderflowers. Just that lovely, sweet, aromatic smell. Some people say it smells a little bit like germaline, but I don't get that. And when you come across a patch of it like this, I describe the flowers as like a time lapse of a firework going off. So you've got this here, which is the firework just starting to go off. I always picture this like a firework after it's gone off. Kind of the way it dissipates in the sky, that sort of cloud of light that's left over after you've had the sharp colours of the firework. But they're, you know, they're really quite distinctive. But you can identify it even when it's not in flower, because it's got a very, very individual leaf pattern. If you see the way these leaves grow up the stem, but in between it, you see these little tiny leaflets that come out of the stem in between the leaves, just here. That's very, very distinctive of this plant. Now, you can eat the leaves, you can eat the flowers. Personally, I don't mind the leaves. You can eat the leaves raw. They're not something I seek out, but they make fantastic flavourings for things. They were used, one of the names of this plant is meadwort, because it was traditionally added to mead to flavour it. So it's just got a beautiful aromatic flavour and, you know, a sweet, pungent flavour. And that's what we're going to be using it for. So that's the first of our wild edibles for midsummer for absolute beginners. Okay, next up on our list is the sow thistle. Now, there are, I think, something like 14 different types of thistle that grow here in the UK, and every single one is edible. They're not all worth the effort though, but some are. This one, the sow thistle, is definitely one that is. So as you can see, if I show you down here, the leaves grow in a rosette out of the bottom when the plant's very young, and then it sends up this flower spike, which can get to quite a size. That one back there is about 3 foot tall. It can get bigger than that even. And they've got these yellow flower heads, which as they open, start to look very much like dandelions, which is something I'm sure you're very familiar with. Now, the stems are smooth, but the leaves, which are the bit we really are going to be harvesting most often, are a little bit prickly on the outside, but not so much that I'm worried about eating them. Now, you might want to get the leaves back to your kitchen and with a pair of scissors, just cut off that outer edge there. And when you do so, you'll see that it exudes a milk-like sap. Can you see there? It's just starting to come out. So the whole plant will exude that milk, and if I cut a stem, it'll be really obvious. Look, you see it all coming out there. And again, the whole plant's edible. You can even dig up the roots and roast them. But when it comes to edibility, the leaves are really, really, really good. They'll go straight in a salad and be, you know, you can use as a like-for-like straight swap out for your lettuce and things like that. So there you go. That's number 2, the sow thistle. And you can't really confuse it with anything dangerous. There are a few things that look a little bit like it, some other thistles and things in the sunflower family, but they're all edible. Nothing you need to worry about. So there you go, number 2, the sow thistle. Next up, we've got Linden Blossom or Lime Blossom, and it's the blossom of the lime tree that we've got here behind me. Now, lime tree leaves have a serrated edge all the way around, and they form this quite wide sort of heart shape. You see how they come in at the stem? This is possibly a better example. But the best identification feature at this time of year is actually the blossom themselves and how they form, because they come out midway through a leaf like this, a separate leaf that's completely different in shape, and you'll see this all over the tree. But the blossoms come out like that from a leaf that comes out of the stem. Where the true leaf meets, you'll have another one that comes out like this. And the blossoms, like this, make an amazing tea, a fantastic edible tea. You can eat them directly as they are. And they're perfectly pleasant, a little bit sweet. They go really nice in salads. But the main use is as a tea, and you can actually buy this tea in the shops and it will cost you a fortune, or you can go out and find your own. That's number 3, Linden Blossom. Highly recommended. If it's something you've not tried, get on out there, find yourself some. Next up, down here, we've got a massively underrated plant, and that is Selfheal. Now, I've seen some people, when we're out on a foraging walk, and I say, do you know what this is? I've heard some people assume it was clover, because we're quite used to seeing clover sticking up out the ground with those little red flowers and white flowers, but these blue or violet flowers are very, very different. And at this time of year, it is the simplest thing in the world to identify. You see how those flowers all come out from a cylindrical bud, and they're all shaped a little bit like a mouth with 2 extra petals either side. There's nothing else that looks quite like this. The stem is square, as we might expect from this plant in the mint family, and it's just, I think, a massively, massively underrated plant for a few reasons. First of all, it is everywhere. Anywhere you've got grassland that's not really well manicured, you've almost certainly got Selfheal. Secondly, it's actually, I think, delicious. It goes really, really well in salads. Yum. Just the leaves. You can eat the flowers, you can eat the flower head. The flowers themselves make a great salad decoration as well. So it's just a really, really, really underrated plant. Now, historically, it was used to cure all sorts of illnesses and ailments. That's how it's got its name, Selfheal. It was a really, really prized medicinal plant. As you guys will know, I don't really go into the health benefits of most natural plants because I only really report on the sort of documented scientific evidence that they have. And I don't know any for this. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but personally, I don't know of it. But Selfheal, just as a wild edible, is massively, massively underrated. And anyone can go and find this today. You almost certainly have some of this growing within a few hundred yards of your doorstep. And then finally, we've come back to where my pigs live to talk about our last plant of our 5 wild edibles for complete beginners in midsummer. And that is down here, Broadleaf plantain. Now, Broadleaf plantain and ribwort plantain are 2 plants that, from a forager's point of view, you can consider exactly the same way. They're very different to look at. I just felt a bug on my leg. I looked down, It was a little frog. Go on, buddy. Keep him in the garden. He's good for our bug control. Anyway, like I say, you can consider broadleaf and ribwort plantain both the same from a forager's point of view, even though they look very different. And I've done a video on both of those. Again, I'll link to that in the description if you want a little bit more detail on how to identify them, etc. But they're pioneer plants. They're going to come in harsh environments where not a lot else is going to thrive, and they're going to do just fine. So there's a load more down here, and over at the side here, much bigger versions. Now, while these are a wild edible, they're perfectly edible. They're not a plant that I eat. I consider them a little bit tough and not a particularly nice flavour, a little bit bitter. But they are a fantastic wild edible to know for one other reason. These are a plant that has a legitimate herbal remedy use. These contain actual antihistamines, both ribwort and broadleaf plantain. So you can use these to make balms, but you can also use them directly to put on stings and bites, because our reaction to stings and bites is to send out histamines, and they overreact, and that's where we get the discomfort from, and antihistamines will block them and make it much, much better for you. So if you've got a child with you on a walk, have some of this in your pocket, because using this on a stinging nettle sting is night and day compared to a dock leaf, which doesn't actually do anything beyond the placebo effect. I talk a bit more about that in that other video, so do check that out. But there you go. That's your 5 wild edibles for a complete novice in midsummer. I certainly hope you found that video useful. If you have, please make sure you press that like button, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.